Hi, this is Eternal King here, bringing you another LOR video today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the secret meta that's developing since the new expansion. So if you don't know, let's see, do search for Wing. So if you don't know, just recently, Sunny probably did the best climb that he's ever done in the course of his time playing LOR. And he did it with this card. So he basically, I believe, more or less reached top 10 in the standard ladder for EU server. Now, I don't play on the EU server. I don't know exactly what the meta's like there, but hitting top 10 in standard specifically is an amazing feat. It basically means that he got to Masters before anyone else on the standard server. So again, this expansion hasn't been out that long. Basically, over the course of something like 2 weeks, he managed to break into Masters for the EU server, and that gave him an instant top 6 placement, which is quite good. I did something similar in Eternal when the Eternal ladder went live, and I'll do the same thing again when the new season goes live for the new cards. But I just want to talk about Sunny's success specifically, and say that even though there isn't any statistical evidence that these new story cards are OP and that they're doing really well, every single experienced player who plays a deck with the story cards ends up reporting insane win rates anecdotally. So again, Grappler was playing the Emperor's Army. He had like a 90% win rate with his Zir Kennen. Now Sunny again went to like top 10 Masters in EU server with the Wings Giving in basically no time at all. And so basically, even though you'll never find any valid statistics on Runeterra AR that the story cards are OP, it seems like every experienced player that plays a deck that is built around a story card just instantly reports like 90% win rate, anecdotally, which is insane. That is insane. And then again, that was kind of the first point I ever made regarding these story cards, is that they have more skill expression baked into their design than any other card in LOR history. And because of that high skill expression, it basically means that good players that play story-based decks will win more than bad players playing non-story-based decks. It's just the way that it's working out. I really can't emphasize that enough. So again, congratulations to Sunny to getting kind of top 10 in EU servers. He deserves it, absolutely. And again, the fact that he's doing it with a story-based deck is no surprise to me, because a skillful player will do better in a story-based deck than a non-skillful player playing a non-story-based deck. That's just kind of the point that I've been making since these stories were released, that they're very high skill expression cards. And what that means is that a good player will be able to express a great deal of skill with the cards, and then a bad player will tank the win rate with these cards because they won't understand how to capitalize on them. And that's exactly what's happening. So again, that is this. I'm going to call this video the secret meta of LOR, because stories are the secret meta. That is the thing, is like you will never see valid statistics that says the Wings Giving is the best card that was ever printed in LOR history, because there will be odd hand states where you draw too many Wings Givings, and people don't mulligan properly to get out of that hand state, or they're not waiting to activate the correct part of the story on the correct turn to maximize the utility of the card. Things like that. They're not setting up proper blocks for when your opponent plays a more aggressive non-landmark based deck. There's a lot of very complicated factors into capitalizing off of these cards, but a good player like Sunny, who understands the interactions of a transform deck, pick an ally, then pick one of 3 followers that cost 1 more. Basically just taking a vanilla unit and then upgrading it to the next mana cost. That can be very, very good. So the standard construction and the eternal construction would be very different. If you were to build for Wings Giving, let's just do the thought experiment. And I just recently did Poro Parade as the thought experiment, because I thought Poro Parade was one of the stories that was highly underrated for Nico decks. So let's go through that first. I think that might be fun to kind of go through. So again, Wings Giving, proven to be a good card. Anecdotally, like all the stories, they have insane skill expression and an insane value propositions for players who can properly capitalize on them. Talking about Pora Parade. Pora Parade's another one that I think is kind of highly slept on right now. Now, again, Nico Nar is not slept on. There is literally a Nico Nar deck right now in Standard that has like a 55% win rate, which is like never before seen Nico doing this well. So again, a lot of these sort of off-meta decks are doing well, but, you know, they're not running Pora Parade, which I think is a mistake. I think that this deck can really, in Eternal specifically, you would want to build this deck so it can bump and grind a little bit. So again, you know, Deck Hunter, Igvar, they're manifesting and cycling. So a lot of cycling power in this deck. You cycle with Deck Hunter, you cycle with Ingvar, you cycle with Junk Construct. You deck buff with Omen Hawk and Snow Dog, and then you play Handy Harness to turn your little, you know, nothing units into very big aggressive units that can actually attack for value. Aura is obviously the necessary ramp card for this archetype, and then Pora Parade is the new story card that is very much necessary. So basically it says manifest a follower that has a different subtype than allies in play. So this is guaranteed. This is a way of essentially playing Nico in a consistent and value-driven deck. So you don't have to play like odd ratioing to make Nico work anymore. You just play Pora Parade and you just manifest the followers you want to level Nico. So Nico, you know, now is guaranteed to level off a Pora Parade, and that's the power of this card. And then plus, you know, and then on 3, essentially doing the same thing as Handy Harness, where you're taking your nothing units and making them massive, massive attack values. So that's why I run both Handy Harness and Pora Parade. One Ultra Soft Poro, again, it's a lot of healing, and it's a good subtype that I don't really want to run in other cards. So again, it's one Ultra Soft Poro. Bonehide Tri-Tail, again, people have stopped running this because it does require you to essentially run Nico suboptimally, but now you get to run Nico suboptimally thanks to the Poro Parade. And then, yeah, we run Gift of the Hearthblood because, again, we love the deck buffs, and we love being able to bump and grind with our Nico deck. So again, lots of cycling power in this deck, and then Glacial Saurian, more cycling power. And then, so this is like how I would take the standard construction of Nico Nar that works in that format, and then standard's just weird, and you know, things that work there I don't understand. But in terms of making the deck function in Eternal, this is the way you'd want to do it, where you have, again, access to healing, so you're not just getting burned out by burn aggro instantly, because that will happen. Like, you know, burn aggro is like a 70% win rate in Eternal. So you need the healing, and then you need the cycling power so you can trade on board with, you know, better decks and things like that. Again, going as hardcore for the Nico level up isn't going to work as well in Eternal because they'll just, like, you know, they'll just kill the Nico. So it's actually more important to have access to things like Poro Parade. So again, this is the secret meta, right? The secret meta, the meta is just like play good decks with, you know, champions and followers as you always have. Nothing's really changed there. But then you have people who can take these story cards and just get maximum value out of them, and then they're absolutely insane. So, you know, increasingly, obviously, the counter to that, even if you're like a suboptimal player, is just to run Explore cards. If you just run Explore cards, that's going to even the odds in terms of these high skill expression win cons. You just delete them, and then, you know, obviously the opponent can't get value out of them. But like Iron Conquest, insane. Really good card. Pora Parade, insane. Wings Giving, proven to be insane by Sunny. Emperor's Army, proven to be insane by me and Grappler. Just like all these cards are nuts. You know, Family Reunion's a staple card for Vex. Pretty much, you know, the vast majority of these cards are very, very good. I think the only one that it's like objectively a little meh is something like Hearth of the Tree, just because it's so slow, and it is very slow. It's just very slow. Having to pass 3 turns on a 7 mana play is like not activating until 10 mana. It's a very slow card. But every single one of these other cards, I think, has utility and has value in terms of the stories. And increasingly what you're finding is the secret meta of players who are able to capitalize on these story cards and run these cards in an optimal landmark-based value shell, are going to win something like 90% of games. Whether that is Grappler with his Emperor's Army or whether it is Sunny with his Wings Giving, these top level players who can express their higher skill level with these story cards are going to win a ridiculous number of games. And the players are basically who can't do that are going to scramble to counter them. That's kind of what we're seeing. And if you're curious about how to counter the secret meta, it is just jam explore cards, right? You just play the explore cards in your deck, whatever it is, and you can just feel pretty confident just to run these now in any deck that you're playing, any creature-based strategy, any deck that you're playing. You can just tech the explore cards. I think you'll find that if you're like tired of landmark-based value and like non-interactive value, like maybe you're an Eddie deck. If you're just playing, Demacia Eddie or Freljord Eddie, just instant run 3 copies of Scholarly Pioneer, and always pull out Explorer's Excavation, and just do that in every single one of your creature-based tempo strategies, and you'll very rarely regret it. You're going to find that you're going to, if you've been struggling a little bit since the release of the new expansion, and you're like, I don't understand what's happening, what's going on here. Just jam Scholarly Pioneer, and then you can just like wash your brain of what's happening, what your opponent can do there, because you just delete it, just instantly snap delete whatever it is they're trying to do with the story cards, any of the crazy value-based shenanigans. Just delete it with the explore value, and then you can go back to doing normal Eddie things. So yeah, that's the secret meta in LOR. You're gonna have your Runeterra AR decks that basically recommend lists that are easy and accessible to play, and then you're going to have your secret meta where you're going to have streamers playing these sort of story-based cards and reporting insane win rates because they just have that higher skill expression that is hard to compete with because their knowledge of the game is like 3 years long at this point. It's a lot of knowledge. So, there was a point in time where Sunny would like never hit like top 10 of EU Masters, but like he did it easily, and like in the course of one play session. And he did it with, Wings Giving. So again, that's the secret meta. It's not just Wings Giving specifically. It's just landmark-based value decks, utilizing most likely one of the stories as their kind of central strong point. But again, you could say the same thing of like TF Temple, where like Temple's not a story card, but it was the first landmark where you're like, wow, these cards can like do a lot. And Riot's been continually pushing what it is a landmark is and what a landmark can do ever since the printing of Temple. And good for them. Because landmarks are cool. It's not Hearthstone, right? It's the opposite of Hearthstone. So they're cool cards. So yeah, that's the secret meta. This is Eternal King, signing out.